Yo everybody, what is up? This is Gabriel here for a end-to-end demo of this new app I've built called Stori. Stori is a digital audio workstation which allows you to amplify your creativity using AI and then tokenize your resulting work and sell it in our marketplace. The big picture here is that I envision AI is about to kick off a creative renaissance unlike any time in human history, and I feel like we needed a toolkit which remained human first but allowed us to use AI to augment and amplify our creative output, and then to leverage all the benefits of Web3 to be able to tokenize our assets, store them on IPFS, and then sell them in a marketplace. And so that's really what this toolkit is. You can see here it has three major components. There's the digital audio workstation, which we're going to go to in great detail. There's also the marketplace, which has no data right now. It will once we sign into our wallet, which this is a full crypto wallet, which we're going to get to in great detail as well. And it allows you to use it throughout the app. And so that's the three main components: digital audio workstation, marketplace, and wallet. So now let's dig into the digital audio workstation a little bit. First, let's create a new project, and we'll call it T1. And then go 100 BPM because I like lo-fi music. It's often 100 BPM. Okay, so here we are. We have a project. You can see at the top we have our title. And then this is a typical what you would expect of a digital audio workstation. So let's talk about what we see on the screen. At the bottom we have the control bar, which is really like the transport controls. Then it also has a metronome. It has the beats, the key, the time signature, and the tempo. It also has master volume and some other controls we're going to dig into. There's also the main part at the top, which is the tracks area. This is where you can create either a new audio track or a new MIDI track, and then from that we'll be able to dig into other parts of the app. So the way I really like to do things is I like to first start with the step sequencer, find some type of drum beat that I like, some drum groove, and then export it to the timeline and usually loop it and then jam over top of it. And so that'll allow us to walk through the different components of the app, I think, in a way which is sort of meaningful to building some type of song. Let's see, so first, let me see where the notes are on the step sequencer. Pardon me one moment. There's like a lot to go through here. Synthesizer, step sequencer, here we go. So step sequencer is kind of like what you would expect. We have 16 columns, so the columns are vertical, and we have 8 rows. The 8 rows map to these 8 different drum instruments. So we have kick, snare, closed hat, open hat, clap, low tom, high tom, and crash. And then like I said, the 16 columns map to 16th notes. So this is like 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E, and so one full cycle through this is one measure up here in the tracks timeline. You can see along the top we have 1E and 2. So it's the same thing. This should map there. So you can go in here and you can start creating your own, which is very fun, and you can spend hours and hours and hours in doing this, or you can load one of the over 300 that we have preloaded. Also, it's worth mentioning, you can load your own custom drum kits. So I have 6, is that how many I have here? Yeah, 6 total loaded here. Korg is my favorite. Then I'm gonna go to presets, and you can also upload your own custom patterns using JSON. So we have an example JSON file I can share with you. But so a big vision here is we're gonna automate all of the entire app so that you can programmatically tap into Stori. So far you can upload your own drum kits, and you can upload your own patterns programmatically. So here you can see our pattern library, and it comes with, I have 2 little ones I was testing around here, but it comes with 304 patterns across 27 categories. And so here you can also see, you can favorite stuff. So if you star something, for example, it'll show up there. You can see my patterns, which are things I've created and saved, and then the ones I've recently used as I've been testing the app. And then here you can see all these genres. So we have 27 categories or genres, from electronic, drum and bass, hip hop, rock and pop, metal and punk, Latin, African, Caribbean, Middle Eastern, etc. Lots and lots and lots. So for example, if we go to hip hop and go to boom bap, it'll automatically populate here. And then if we play this, I presume you can hear that. So of course that is the rhythm. It's at 100 BPM. You can also do things like go down to 8 steps. You can go up to 32 steps as well. We're going to stick with 16, and then I'm just going to export this, and it will say pattern exported, boom bap has been added to the selected track. So here we see it up here. So when I played this here, that was the step sequencer playing. When I play this here, sorry, that of course is the track, and you can see this timeline moving along here. And so you can move back and forth along the track using the period and the comma to move back and forth. So now we have this up here, and I can basically close this down here, but a couple things you can do before I leave it. You can see this line here on these notes, that's called velocity. So a couple things you can do in nearly many different places in the app is you can give a note a velocity, which is how hard it's being hit, and you can give it some type of a swing, like what you can see here, which is how close it is to being directly on the beat. And so that allows you to be more expressive in your voicings. Number one, you can do several of these, right? So have one of these be one measure, change it around a little bit, put it as measure 2, change it around a little bit as measure 3, change the swing on some of the notes, change the velocity up and down on some of the notes, and it just gives it a bit more human feel, right? It's like not everything sounds exactly the same, or if you want it to sound the same, if that's the sound you're going for, then you don't have to mess with those at all. But it's just something to note. There's a bunch of different places in the app where you can either give something a swing or change the velocity, and it gives it a bit more human a feel than a bit of a robotic feel. So that's the step sequencer. Again, I think the most cool thing about it is that it comes with over 300 different drum patterns, and there's just so much cool stuff in here to get your creative juices flowing. So my workflow is usually, so let me go ahead and close this. Keyboard shortcuts for everything, so many that I'll mention them as I go through the workflow, but it would slow me down to mention them all. Basically, this is a really nicely architected native Mac app. And so everything you would expect from these drop-down menus at the top to keyboard shortcuts to right-clicking for context menus to being optimized for performance. I mean, it's a really great app. It's the strongest software I've ever worked on. I'm really quite happy with it. So you have a keyboard shortcut, Command D, which will close and open the step sequencer. So now we're back up here. My workflow usually is as follows. I'll create a track. You can see over here is the track name and has a track color. If we change the color, it'll change the audio region color. If we change the name, so let's say I call it drums and hit enter, it actually detected that and turned it into looks like an eighth note, an eighth note. And so here you can see, if you click on it, you can also change to whatever you want. For now, we'll just leave it as a rhythm because it detected that it was called drums and it changed it to that. Here you can see this is the track header. You can prime this to record. You can mute this so this track doesn't play. So if I mute this and start it, we don't hear it. You can solo this. So if you have multiple tracks, which we will in a second, we'll show this again, you can have only this track play or any of the app's tracks that are soloed will play. This is volume. This is pan to left and right. This is for generating music with AI and for generating sound effects with AI, which we will of course demo in just a moment. And then this is to delete the track. Up here you can see that you can zoom in and out on the horizontal and on the vertical axis. And something I want to note is that whenever we exported this drum pattern, you can see that it created this audio region up here, which has 16 columns and 8 rows. So this audio region resembles this down here. So you can see this exact pattern is visualized here. So I think that's kind of cool. So as you watch this go, you can see exactly what beats it should be on, just as if it were doing this down here. So I think that's pretty nice, a little bit of UX sugar there. So now let's kind of make this a bit smaller. Let's zoom out a little bit. And again, my workflow is I will usually create one track, just drop some drums in there, just anything that can get my creative juices flowing. And then I would loop it usually. So you can hear it, you can see if I hover at the top right, if I hit return, it will return the playhead to beginning. Space starts and stops it. Those are those keyboard shortcuts. If it's playing and you do, Control and space, it'll go back to the beginning and stop. There's a ton of keyboard shortcuts. If you learned every keyboard shortcut, you could really be a power user with this app. It's actually pretty cool. You can see if you hover over the right, it allows me to resize. If you hover over the, the bottom, resize, top, loop. We want to loop. So there's some cool stuff about looping. When I loop, it automatically goes into snap mode, and you can see it wants to snap at each of the at each of the quarter notes, not 16th notes. I think I said 16th notes earlier. These are quarter notes. The step sequencer is in 16th notes. You can see if you look at that little thing, it says snap, and so it says snap 211. So what's it telling us there? It's saying you're in snap mode, you're starting on measure 2, beat 1, and then the next one is actually the 16th note. So you can see here it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's actually give us the final one is the 16th note. So now it's saying you're on measure 2, beat 2, 16th note 1, basically. And so that's snap mode, and then you can see at the bottom there in pink ×2, it's showing us how many times we've looped. If I hold down the command key, I am now in free mode. I can drop it anywhere. So if I want to try and land on a 16th note, I can do that. And if I hold down the shift key, control key, it goes into loop mode, and you can see here it will just stop on the measures each time, which I think is really rad. And if I'm in free mode or snap mode, you can see it'll only visualize the part of the drum sequence which is going to be played. So all in all, it's an incredibly smooth UX, and I usually do something like this, like maybe drag off 4 full measures of a drum beat, and then I will turn on the cycle region. So cycle region allows you to have something repeat like this. So I'll turn on the cycle region, drag out 4 bars, and then start letting it do its thing. And so then the next step is, okay, I've got something that can just sort of loop while I'm grooving on some instrument or whatever. So then it makes sense now to open up the MIDI keyboard. So soon you'll be able to plug in your external MIDI keyboard. For today, it's all using virtual keyboard is what I'm going to demo. We have a really cool virtual keyboard. It turned out quite well. So here there's like a MIDI standard, and there's 128 instruments that are part of this MIDI standard. We have all 128 of them in Stori. You can see them all here. So when you create a new MIDI instrument, you can tell it what you want it to be. I'm just going to let it be the acoustic grand piano by default. And then you can tell it to, You can tell it to open the instruments library by default. So when I create this, it opened the library along the left, which is Command L as well. And then you can see there's an instruments tab as well as a sounds tab and a loops tab. And this instrument tab has piano, chromatic percussion, organ, guitar, bass, strings, ensemble, brass, etc. And each one of these has multiple instruments. So there's 128 of these. By default, it's acoustic piano because that's the one I chose. So now, if I do Command Shift and K, I'll bring up the virtual keyboard. And you can see it has the voicing of an acoustic piano. So if I close out with Escape, close this, and go try something completely different like synth effects, rain, and open it back up. Right? So what I would do then in our virtual keyboard, just so while we're here, the way the virtual keyboard works, in case you're unfamiliar, is this is mapping to the QWERTY keyboard on my Macintosh here. And so you can see it's playing to MIDI track 1, which is what this is called. It shows what octave it's in. You can change the octave up and down here. Of course, it has the full 8 octaves of a grand piano keyboard. You can also change the velocity, as I mentioned. That's how hard each key is being struck. And then down here you can see it shows what letters on my QWERTY keyboard, A, S, D, F, map to these keys on the keyboard. And then, for example, down here you can see space is sustain, right? So it's like a sustain key on a piano. And so that's how a virtual keyboard works. You use the QWERTY keyboard to basically play MIDI instruments. And so I'm going to go back to, let's do something like bass. Just keep it nice and simple here. Finger. So what I would do just to kind of play around is I would just let it loop, and then I would open the keyboard and just come up with some type of groove. It doesn't even have to be anything special for this demo. That's good, but it should be an octave lower. Right? So then the way I would do it is we want to prime this. I'm going to go ahead and close the library over there because we want to have as much screen real estate as possible. So the way this would work now is I would make sure this track is active, and I would enable its recording button there. And then when I press record here, it's going to start recording, and I'm going to need to press Command Shift and K to bring up the virtual keyboard, and then Z to drop an octave. And then I'll just play probably the second half of it, or the groove, and then I'll probably copy it over, and you'll see what I mean. So let me just try that and see how that turns out. Actually, we have a metronome down here, which might even be more helpful. Let's turn it on, and let's have it count in. Look, we have these metronome settings. So we have the metronome enabled. We want it to count in before recording, and we want it to do it for 1 bar. That'll probably be good, I think, there. So now let's try this. Okay, so you heard there was a slight little stutter there with the metronome when it counted in, so that's something I need to debug. But the main moral of the story here is that we have what we wanted. We have this MIDI, and you can see it has this visualization of this piano roll. And so a piano roll is really cool. If you're not unfamiliar with it, the way it works is along the left we have all 8 octaves of a grand piano. Again, you can see them visualized here. If you click on one, you can hear them. And then down here we have the notes that I played up here. So you can do things like move them over a little bit. I don't even know what the timing should be, but the point simply being you can do it like this and it'll change. Like that. Let me turn off the metronome. So let me do a couple of things here. Let me just go ahead and delete these. You can do a lot of stuff with this up here, just so while we're here, let me just kind of show you what's going on here. We also have this cycle bar which maps to up here. So you can see the cycle bar shows us where we started. It's saying you started on measure 1, beat 1, and you go through measure 5, beat 5. That's a total of 4 bars. We see the same thing here. It's a little transparent here, and it's overlaid on top of the beat ruler. Down here we have the beats that were created when I played the virtual keyboard. You can select individual ones. If you select them up here, you can change their velocity, and it is represented by their opacity no matter what color they are. So now that one's going to be quieter whenever it plays. If you select multiple ones, you can change the group velocity. You can select them all at once. You can delete them. You can select them all and quantize them, so it will, you saw how it slightly changed them right there. It'll have them more closely mapped to the quarter or 16th notes. You also over here, you can zoom in and out, of course. Here is what it quantizes to when it says snap. Over here you can select, draw, erase, slice, or velocity, so you can do a bunch of different actions here on the piano roll grid. And you can even, if you see here, when you're looking at this, here you have C2, right? And you can see this one's gray, this one's darker gray, lighter gray, darker gray. What you're visualizing there is a scale. So if I click this, it's a major scale. I can put it on natural minor or harmonic minor or whatever. So while you're designing your music down here, you don't even have to play it in the virtual keyboard. You can literally just draw it like this, one at a time. Wherever you click, it's going to play the note. And then you can even, you have these different scales visualized by what I just did. I changed it. Let's go back to major. And so that allows you to even quickly compose music. It's incredibly cool. And what's even more cool is that this maps to this score. So over here we have this score. Let me change it to bass clef because I was playing so low. And it has many different clefs, alto clef, tenor clef, and then percussion. And then you can change the key, and you can change the time signature, and you can even draw on this. So you can either compose in a score, and it will then map to this piano roll and be visualized up here in MIDI, or you can compose by drawing on this piano roll, and it will map to the score, just appear here like you see this, and it'll appear up here on MIDI. Or you can play on the virtual keyboard, and it will appear in the piano roll, and it will also appear in the score. And when you have the score, you can actually export this to MusicML or PDF or print it out. So, you can play music and it'll automatically transcribe it for you. You can print it out and take it and play it with your band at school or whatever. There's just so many creative possibilities with what you can do here. But just to make this super easy, because I have like a ton of stuff to demo, I'm going to make some stupidly simple music here. So first, let's just start with like a long note here. Here we go. That long, and then we want it to be boom, boom, D sharp. So we're going to draw on D sharp. And you see I drew on the wrong note, right? I drew on D, but that's okay. I just pick it. Oops, sorry. I had to get out of draw mode. Delete that. Do select and move it up. There you go. Again, I would take more time to get that slightly more on beat if I were, but since I'm in the middle of a demo and I don't really want to do that, I'm just simply going to do a little loopy loop. You see what I mean? Again, I don't expect it to be amazing, and let's just add maybe one or two more instruments. So we're adding MIDI here. Let's add something, maybe a little bit, oh no, I'm sorry, that was a bass. Let's add a, let's do, it doesn't have to be anything too special, something like a rock organ, which sounds like what? So if we do, again, just to kind of get a groove. Obviously very, very simple. I would do the same exact thing, except now instead of having that be primed for recording, I would prime this. This track is selected and active. Let's go ahead and close the piano roll, and let's focus on recording again. I think that the metronome might give us another hiccup. It doesn't really matter because I kind of just want to have a second to set up the keyboards. So here I would hit record. Now open it down here in the piano roll by double clicking on it, and it comes down here. You can see that I have a couple little errors there in my playing, so I would do something like erase, get rid of that, select this one. Again, I don't expect this to be the most amazing music in the world. I think what did we do? We literally just snapped it to the beats. So then deselect that one, select this one, snap it to that beat. Get rid of this one because that was the wrong note. This was the right note. Oops. So now I gotta draw it again. Let's draw it. So it goes. There we go. And back down to C, which we're just going to make a beat long. Again, I know this is like stupidly simple. The idea is simply that we have something to groove on a little bit here. Okay. So let's see. Okay, again, stupidly simple, but the kind of point of the moral of the story is I kind of wanted to show you the virtual keyboard. I wanted to show you the MIDI library of voicings over here. I wanted to show you the piano roll. I wanted to show you the score. I wanted to show you how quickly it is to export a drum track, how easy it is to do some MIDI recording on the virtual keyboard, etc., etc. You can also record with a microphone if you create a new audio track. I'm not going to do, I don't know if it's going to feedback right now or not. I'm afraid it'll feedback because I don't have my headphones in. I'm recording on my max mic, but this does work. So if I disable this and record this, and then I just hit, let me close this again. If I just hit the record button right now, it will record my voice. And you can do the same thing that I did with looping and resizing. You can do that all as well with the voice, and it'll give you the little pop-up which shows you what measure you're starting on, and looping and freeforming and snapping. All those different functionalities you saw with this also works when you're recording your voice. So all of that works. Let's see, what is the next flow? One last thing, I guess, before we move on to kind of the tokenized flow is, if you're a super audiophile, we also have this synthesizer. So you can see down at the bottom it has this keyboard, which again is going to map to 2 octaves, or not 2 full octaves, an octave and a little bit more. And you can see it has a lot of different stuff here. So it has oscillators at the top. You can change the envelope. It's really, really cool. It has different filter. So if you're an absolute audiophile and you're looking for a place where you can create your own your own sounds, and then export them and store them over here in your library and use them with the virtual keyboard or your own MIDI keyboard, that's here as well. This is like a super advanced functionality, but we also have a really cool synthesizer. So we have a virtual keyboard, and we have a piano roll, and we have a score, and we have a step sequencer, and we have a synthesizer. And it all works, and in great detail. Okay, so that's really cool. So now let's move on to the next sort of flow. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have 3 different accounts. So I want you to keep track of 3 different things in your mind. Number 1, there's going to be the user A, user B, and then the Tell Your Story platform. That's really not that hard to keep track of. But this is a full-blown crypto wallet. Everything you see here works. You can see the keys are stored in macOS keychain with biometric protection. It's a BIP39 mnemonic. It all does local signing. It has support for NFTs. When you create a wallet, you can do 8 different languages. You can create them in 12, 15, 18, 21, and 24 words. It's the same flow you always know. If you've ever created a wallet, it's going to show you your words, tell you to back them up. It's going to verify that you backed them up, and then you're secure and you're signed in. You can also import a mnemonic, and you can import a private key. I have 3 private keys that we're using, obviously, since we're demoing this. As I mentioned, there's user A, user B, and the Tell Your Story platform. So for user 1, we are going to go ahead and sign in. I'm going to go ahead and import this private key. Okay, so here you can see this is actually really connected to the local Tell Your Story L1 network. So this is a layer 1 EVM blockchain that's on the Avalanche network. The TUS, Tell Your Story, is the actual sort of gas token. And this is the balance. This is they call it the EWAC address. If you're ever developing an Avalanche, this is the EWAC address. So you can see it had 1 million TUS when it first got created. It spent 2.5 or something to deploy a bunch of different contracts, and I've done it several different times. So that's what you're seeing with this balance. So the main things you want to see here are, now that we have a wallet, you can see there's some activity, and you can send and receive and refresh, and you can lock it. Here's the address. You can connect to the local, you can connect to Fuji testnet or the Avalanche mainnet, and you can hide and close the visualization of what your balance is. And there's your address again. I want to jump on over to the marketplace, which again is empty. It says indexer error. I hope we're not going to get an indexer error because we want to see stuff here. But let's just go ahead and let this run, and I might have to restart the app or something. I'm not sure. So let's just see. Here we have our song, and we want to now tokenize it. But before we do that, actually, there's a couple more things I need to demo. I'm sorry, I forgot some key functionality here. Number 1 is, remember, this is augmented by AI. So what does that mean? That means it has a chatbot built in, and this is all local. So all of the AI you see here is local. Nothing is happening on AWS. Nothing is using NVIDIA. This was specifically architected to use Apple's silicon because they have a new M-series chip, which has a neural engine, and they have a new MLX framework, which is sort of similar to CUDA. And so I expect there's going to be a renaissance of really cool AI stuff happening locally on Apple hardware going forward, and I wanted to be on the cutting edge of that with Stori, and so we have. So here we have this LLM, and you can say, give me chords for a lo-fi track. And it should respond relatively fastly, right? So there it said, sure, here's a chord progression for a lo-fi track, chord progression C, G, A minor, F. So you can see that was relatively quick. So that's all local. What's really cool is that there's something called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, which allows you to augment the LLM with more text. So I actually have complete documentation for all of Stori. Everything I'm demoing for you today, including all of the keyboard shortcuts and drop-down menu items and everything. And we've augmented this LLM with that information so you can actually chat with the app in human language about how it works, and it can tell you how to create new tracks, how to generate new music, how to tokenize your work, etc. I'm confident that that's how the future of all apps will work. It makes so sense. Why would it not be a local LLM augmented with the app's documentation? So first time I've ever seen it is here, but it seems pretty obvious. Next, we have the visual tab. So here we're going to say unicorns and rainbows and hit generate image. This is using SDXL, Stable Diffusion XL. It doesn't take that long to generate images. Again, this is happening all locally on the Apple M series Silicon. You can see here it generated it. I can set it as a project image. So when I do that, you can set it as a track image as well, and you can set it as a project image. So I'm going to keep it simple and set it as a project image. You can see it showed up here. So before we go forward, there's two more cool things to show you, and then we'll tokenize this, and hopefully it'll show up in the marketplace, and then we'll be able to buy and sell from the two different addresses. So before we do that, the cool thing is if you create a new audio track, and that's this one now selected. Oh yeah, I didn't even show you this. There's also a mixer down here, and from the mixer, you can create a new bus and do something like a reverb. This is also stuff you would expect in a digital audio workstation. And so you can see that now created this reverb down here. And then on that, I can add 8 different effects. So I can add this reverb effect. And if I then fire up this, reverb is now active on this channel, and you can see that there were 8 different effects in here. There was reverb, delay, chorus, compressor, EQ, distortion, filter, modulation, and you can share these between the different tracks, or you can have tracks have their own. So you can create a supercut. Say you like reverb on every single track, so you can create one reverb bus and assign it to every single one of your tracks mixer channels. But then you also, let's say you want one track to just have really crazy distortion and delay and echo and all this stuff, then you can create another bus and only have it through that. And so when you do that, you have to make sure you turn this knob up here, which says to send up to 100% of this channel through this bus. And so you would hear reverb if you did that. Now, so let me go ahead and turn that down and disable this because I don't really want a bunch of reverb blasting, but I just wanted to point that out. We also have a really cool mixer, and you can add you can add sends or buses or auxiliaries, whatever your terminology is, and then once you have that, you can add all 8 of these different effects, and we're also going to have an API so you can plug in your own. Like I mentioned, everything is going to be programmatic as well as being able to do it through this GUI, which I think is cool. And then again, in the same way you can change the color of your MIDI region or audio region from up here in the track header, you can do it down here from in the mixer as well. Okay, so now back to this, you can see we created this new track, and what I want to do is just generate a real quick little bit of audio and sound effects. So what's really cool is, as I mentioned, this is a human-first toolkit, but it allows you to augment your creativity with AI. So you can now generate music with AI, and I think is really rad, and where it's going to be in the future is going to be exceptional. That's part of my whole sort of thesis that we're going to unlock this creative renaissance, because anyone is going to be able to create any type of art. And you can still play traditional instruments. There's nothing wrong with that. I do it every day, and we should continue to do that. But you can also create pretty amazing stuff now just from text prompts. And as an artist, I think that's something we should embrace and use as just one more tool in our toolkit. And that's really what Stori is all about. So here you can see, you can describe your own. Here's the duration. It can do both music and sound effects. Here's the duration. I'm going to just do 5 seconds. We have a manual prompt where we have a template builder. So this format we've figured out after many generations that this will generate a good format for you. So if you don't want to figure out how to do it yourself and you want to get the most expressiveness out of this model, you can come here and say, give me an electronic, deep house, energetic track in A minor at 125 beats per minute featuring a synthesizer. And you can give it specific details with heavy bass, soaring leads. You can give it chord progression. We have presets of chord progressions like blues, 12-bar blues, jazz, etc. So here's at the bottom the prompt that's going to be created. And when I hit generate music, I'm going to sit here with you in real time so you can get a sense of what this takes. I don't expect it'll take a ton of time. You can see this is relatively accurate. So if we're already at 30% in however many seconds that was, now it's at 30. Now it's going by 1% at a time. If it does that, hopefully it won't take too long. Let's give it a second. See what it does. There we go. So it finished that fast. That was not a long time. So if we solo this track and just play it, right, so that is the music that it created. It was 5 seconds long, three measures, about at 100 beats per minute. And you can see that was the electronic that it just created. It is incredibly expressive. So I don't know if that particular, generated music will fool you or make you think it's not that powerful, but it can do everything. If you go to my YouTube channel, haha, plug for my YouTube channel. I think like I had 34 videos in a row I did where I generated them all with Story. So I generated the images here and I generated the music strictly with AI. And I specifically did like a tour around the world and I tried all of these different genres and all of these different polyrhythms and all of these like esoteric instrument combinations, and it expresses them incredibly well. I mean, it's amazing, honestly. Again, if you think about it, this is today's technology running on a local Macintosh. You kind of think, oh geez, it's going to be pretty freaking amazing going forward. Again, the premise behind this toolkit. So you can also do audio effects. I won't waste your time, but in the very exact same UX, go over here and you can see our template builder has, explosion, thunder, wind, rain, and it can do anything. Just as expressive as it is with music, it's that expressive with audio. And I suspect, just like there are audiophiles who are going to have a blast playing around with the synthesizer, I suspect there are people who will do nothing but generate it can generate up to 30 seconds, which is actually pretty good, audio and sound effects. And you can just fall down the rabbit hole with that stuff, generate it for days and days and days. What I like to do is mix and match them. So I will usually do something like what we saw above, this exact workflow, export a drum sequence pattern, groove around on some different instruments, find something that works, obviously more advanced than what we did here very quickly, maybe generate some music to go in and out or tie it together in some way. If you right click on this, you can actually do some really cool stuff. You can analyze it, you can export it. If you have more than one and you highlight them, you can actually do tempo matching on AI generated music. It's incredibly cool and exciting to think what people are going to do with it creatively. So now we have this all in check. Let's move to the next step. We want to tokenize this. We click the tokenize button. We have our create digital master. So you got to remember, one of the problems we're solving, maybe I wasn't clear about it before, is that one of the biggest stories that you hear from musicians is that they get screwed over by not owning their masters. It's like a universal truism. The number of artists who have their masters is the exception to the rule. And so that's one of the problems we solve here, because with Web3, you can do something like create a smart contract where a certain address owns what is a tokenized asset effectively. And you can even have multiple people have automated royalty payments. So I have friends who work in the music industry in LA, and they told me some nightmare scenarios where some major labels that we would all know by name, pay out royalties like every 3 months, every 6 months, sometimes every year. Sometimes they screw it up. I heard a story of one of my friends. It took 3 cycles of getting 50 grand he was owed, and he didn't get it through 3 of his, payments, his royalty payments, because of his masters. And that's just a nightmare. If you're trying to live your life, that's really a nightmare when you have something like Web3 where you can quite literally get paid a fraction of a penny in real time, and you can do that with this app. And so because I have QuickTime recording just this screen, I can't show you my terminal and run the script, but at the end of this, I'll make sure to highlight it. All of the different addresses, real Tell Your Story token is transferring between them. So everything you're seeing here is working in real time. So here you can create a digital master. And when you create a digital master, what it is it's an ERC 721 NFT is effectively what it is. So I'm just going to put Lorem Ipsum, and the title is T1, and you can see the project cover whenever I set that as the project, the unicorns and rainbows. Down here we have all the different stems. So stems are just the different tracks. You saw we had drums, MIDI track 1, MIDI track 2, and track 1. Down here is secondary royalties. So one of the problems we're solving, again, you own your digital masters, but then you want to sell it in our marketplace. Well, how does that work? Well, whenever you sell it, so your digital master, again, is an ERC 721. As you can see here in this screenshot below, you can have multiple owners and you can give them different percent of shares. So for example, you could give like the songwriter 20%, the producer 30%, and the performer 50%. For example, right here you can add owner and you can give them different percentages, and you can remove owner, and then you can have secondary royalty cells. So again, whenever I click this right here, Mint Digital Master, it did that. So that actually uploaded to IPFS. I don't know if this URL is broken or not. If it is, forgive me. So there it is. It's not broken. This is actually real. You can see this is on localhost on my machine. And you can see these are all the traits of the ERC721 token. It shows type. It's a digital master. Royalty, owner. See, royalty is 10%. Owners was 1. The description, the image. So if I do this and I put this hash here, image. So this is this image being read off of IPFS. And then there is also this audio URI, right? So that's coming off IPFS, sorry, drums. Here's the drums. So it uploaded the individual stems as well, and you can see it's an ERC721 on chain ID 507. So that all worked. That uploaded to IPFS, right? Digital master created. It shows the token ID, the transaction, all the stuff you would sort of expect. So now we say done, and we go to the marketplace. And it is still not reading. Okay, I'm going to pause this and I'll be right back. I'm going to get the indexer reading from the blockchain. Give me 1 second. I apologize. Okay, everybody, we are back. Sorry about that. I told you I spun up a new L1 recently, or for this demo, and I didn't deploy all of the smart contracts, which caused in turn a GraphQL query. So there we go. A query error, I should say. But we're back now. And you can see that I'm still signed in as the Ewok user. And this, if you remember, we tokenized that song called T1, and it had that asset, that Rainbows and Unicorns asset that we generated. So I'm in the My Creations tab, right? So your identity is tied to your crypto keys. You can have mnemonics, or you can import a private key, as I showed you. And so here, it knows by looking at the blockchain and querying GraphQL that these are my creations, and you can see it has 4 stems. There's been no licenses yet. I want to click it, and here we can see the name, the token ID, the number of stems, 0 licenses, the royalty. That number seems off. I'll look into that. When it was created, the description down here. You can listen to the stems. It has the owner's address. And again, I think these are accurate. It's just that they're being displayed incorrectly. It shouldn't be 1,010%. It should be 1% and 10%. But the most important point is this, licenses. So as I mentioned, one of the big problems we're solving is that so many artists get screwed over by not owning their digital masters. So whenever you tokenize a song, or a project, it becomes a ERC721. And again, you can set up automated royalty payments, and you can have it be between multiple addresses. And then whenever you issue a license, it's an ERC 1155, and we have 5 different license types. So let's create a license. We have full ownership, streaming, limited play, time limited, and commercial license. And so you can see in between each one, if it's full ownership, there's complete ownership with download and resell rights, and is best for collectors, fans who want to own the music. And then there's also streaming, pay-per stream micropayments, limited play, time limit. So limited play, so streaming is, of course, what it sounds like. You can pay, very, very small amounts, fractions of a penny, to just stream it instead of being able to download it. Limited play is you can only listen to it so many times. Limited time is you can only listen to it for so long, let's say for a week or something. And then commercial license is rights to commercial use, and you can get HD assets, etc. And so let's say we want to do full ownership. We also have a digital rights management engine under the hood, which allows, we'll see this after this, whenever we buy this by the other guy, and whenever he loads it to play it, the player will respect the different licenses. And then whenever you sell something in the marketplace, Tell Your Story or Story gets 1% of that. And so we also want to use interchain messaging on Avalanche, because one of the cool things about Avalanche is the architecture is very modular. There's many L1s. Each L1 is basically its own modular app or ecosystem. But the smart contracts can call into other smart contracts on other L1s using interchain messaging. It's an incredibly cool abstraction. And so we want to expose our digital rights management and licensing framework smart contracts as I mentioned, there's 4 of them. We want to make them available over interchain messaging, so other apps, if they just need this whole licensing thing, they can leverage our framework. That's our idea. So for now, let's go with full ownership. Here we can change the price, for instance. It's denominated in Tell Your Story tokens. I have an idea that we might have an oracle which can feed in some type of dollar to Tell Your Story conversion, and we can display prices in your local currency. That's my intention anyway. Here you can set a maximum supply, so there's going to be 100 tokens. We allow resale, so if you remember when we tokenized this, the owner, the Ewok key, set 10%, which it was showing as 10,000, if you remember. But that's how much this would get if this person resells this on a secondary market. So you can imagine if you were like an amazing artist, think of your favorite artist, and they use this tool, and they created only 100 of their new album, and 100 people got them. And then later, if they resold them on a secondary market or something, the original artist would get 10% because that's what they had set in the original ERC 721 smart contract when they tokenized their work. So that's very cool. Down here, you can see, again, this math display is off. I apologize. I think it's off by a factor of 10 or so, or maybe 2 factors of 10. I have to look into that. But the point simply being, here you can see down here, it'll give you math on what you would receive if you sold them and the potential revenue, etc. So let's review and create. Here we go. And let's create the license. And so this takes a second to index, but it did get created. And so when I say done, we should be able to close this now. And if I browse over here, I don't see the license. Give me 1 second. Let me check GraphQL. I apologize. Hey everybody, I'm back. Sorry about that. It was GraphQL queries, which have been getting mutated as I was working this morning, but everything should be up and running now. I apologize. There's some noise in the background. Okay, so if you remember last, we had just tokenized our T1 project from My Creations, and we had set its license. It's now for sale in the marketplace. Here you can see it shows the image we created. This is all being read from IPFS, by the way, the image. Here you can see it. It says we already own it because it detects, you already own this digital master, so it knows who we are based on our ID, right? So if we go over to the wallet and then we lock it, in dev mode, there is no password, but if we reset this password, and then if I say import private key and I jump over and grab our second, remember if I told you there was user 1, that's the Ewok key, that's who created the song and then tokenized it and put it in the marketplace. Now that we have, what did I do? Sorry, I copied it wrong. My apologies. What's going on here? There we go. I apologize. It works. I just copied some extra space on the other side of it. That was a me error, not an app error. But the point being, so here you can see we're now in, and this is real. Again, this is reading from GraphQL and from the blockchain. We have 507 TUS. So now if I jump over to the marketplace, it doesn't say you own this asset, it says buy now. So if I jump up, I can complete the purchase of it. You can see it had that play icon here. I thought we did, the UI has changed here. We had a play button here where you could hear the stems. Those will be coming back, so you can imagine you can sample like a couple seconds of the song or whatever. Obviously you shouldn't be able to hear the whole thing, but you'll be able to hear a little bit of it. You hit complete purchase, and it works, right? So there it is. That just happened on the blockchain, purchase complete. So now if I go over to my purchases, it shows up, boom. And if I open it in my purchases, as I mentioned, this player will respect the rights of the license. So for example, if you buy something that is a limited time, it will only allow you to listen to it for whatever that time is. If you buy something which is a limited number of plays, it'll say like 3 out of 7 plays left, etc. And so that gives you a sense of sort of what the entire workflow is. Obviously, it's still going to come into much more focus. And I just really wanted to kind of demo it to everybody to give them a sense of what I've been working on. Again, it's called Stori. It's a human-first toolkit for amplifying your creativity using AI, and then tokenizing it, storing it on IPFS, and then selling it in our marketplace. So let me know if you want to potentially be a beta tester, reach out, and that's it. Coming soon this year on Avalanche. Soon. Thanks. Cheers.